edition of Planet Outlook. This is our continuing series on air pollution, which has dominated news headlines for the past few months. And my guest today is Dr. Arvind Kumar, who is one of the leading voices in the country on the perils of air pollution. And also, he's one of the most eminent doctors in the country on pulmonary medicine and robotic chest surgery. He founded the Lung Care Foundation in 2015, which went on to kind of launch the Doctors for Clean Air in 2018. Sorry, Lung Care Foundation in 2015 and Doctors for Clean Air in 2018, which completes 2 years this December. So thank you, Dr. Kumar, for joining us on Planet Outlook. It's a pleasure having you on this show.
Same here.
Dr. Kumar, I want to begin by asking you on the state of our lungs. You've been treating patients from diverse backgrounds of all age groups for many years now. So what are you seeing, especially with people living in North India, in metro cities? What's the picture that you are getting?
Yeah, first of all, good morning to you. And it's a beautiful question actually to begin the discussion on air pollution because it just sets the right tone for the discussion. I have been witness to something which normally people would see over centuries. I started my career as a chest surgeon in 1988 at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And for the last 30 years, I have been opening chests of people of various ages, both sexes from across the world, and have been witness to a true bad revolution. And what is that revolution? That there has been a change in the color of the lungs. So 30 years back, I would mostly see pink lungs as the color that we are born with. And only when I used to operate on smokers, known smokers, I would see black deposits or the entire lung being black. But over the last 30 years, there has been a sea change. And now I'm very sorry to report from the OR, from my own eyes, seen from my own eyes, that it's a rarity for me today to see a normal pink lung without black spots. And the most worrying part is when I occasionally operate on teenagers, people in 12, 13, 14, 15 age group, I see black deposits on their lungs also. These are toxic chemical deposits which are there forever. They are never removed and they cause permanent continuing damage to the lungs. So I report through your channel to the world that there is a huge amount of damage which is occurring to our lungs right from the first breath of our life because of the toxic chemicals which we are inhaling, which are getting deposited inside the lungs. Fortunately, God has given a huge amount of extra capacity in our lungs. So initially, when there is a minor loss in function, it doesn't manifest in the form of any change in our exercise ability. And it's only when a large percentage of our functional lung is destroyed, which takes quite some time, that we start feeling the effect. So all of us, from the very first breath of our life, are suffering damage without being aware of it. And I, as a chest surgeon, am witness to it several times every day in the operating room.
You mentioned children of ages of 12 and 13. How about even younger, which we are now reading in the news headlines that even toddlers, basically 1-2 years old, are coming to you and other doctors who are chest specialists with kind of same ailments or kind of.
So I'm an adult chest surgeon and I typically operate people above 10 to 12 years of age. However, I have been to the theater of my pediatric surgical, which means the surgeons who operate on children, colleagues, and I must share that I have noted small deposits on the lungs of those children as well. I didn't report it per primum because that's not something that I see every day. What I see every day, I report with more confidence. However, I want to share with you that when a newborn comes out of the mother's womb and takes his or her first breath, he or she inhales the same air that you and me are breathing. And if that air has a PM 2.5 of say 250, which is what we Delhiites breathe most of the months of the year, that's equal to about 10 cigarettes in terms of damage to the lungs. There's a conversion formula. 22 micrograms of PM 2.5 is equal to 1 cigarette in terms of damage to the lungs. So if you are breathing air of 250 micrograms PM 2.5, it's equal to smoking 10 cigarettes a day. So a child born in a city with 250 micrograms PM 2.5 breathes or takes 10 cigarettes from the very first breath of his life. And that's precisely the reason why all cancer surgeons across our country are reporting a decline in the peak incidence of lung cancer. So when I started in 88, I used to see lung cancer mostly in 50s and 60s in only smokers. 95% of my patients were smokers, and mostly men, because men smoke more. However, in the analysis 2 years back, I found that now 50% of my patients are non-smokers, 40% of my patients are non-smoking women from non-smoking families, and the peak age now is 40s, and I have 8% of my patients in 30s, and my youngest patient was a 28-year-old girl, non-smoker from a non-smoking family. One starts wondering why these people are developing cancer at such an early age. What's happening? So when we go into biochemistry and causation of cancer, we find that exposure to cancer causing chemicals is needed for about 20 to 25 years before the tissues become cancerous. So earlier people used to start smoking, say about 20, 25 years of age, give another 25 years, so they are ready to have lung cancer by the time they are 50. Now, the children are becoming smokers at birth. So, and by the time they are 30 years old, they've actually been a smoker. I dare say that no one in a polluted city is a true non-smoker.
So you mentioned this.
I am a non-smoker, but I call myself so-called non-smoker because truly I'm not a non-smoker, because breathing Delhi's air, I do breathe 10, 12, and sometimes 25, 30, 40 cigarettes a day without having any control over it. Please.
Dr. Kumar, you mentioned this black chemical deposits. You talked about briefly on the lung cancer, people getting this disease. But what are the other ailments or complications which are you seeing people are developing in this period?
That's again a very intelligent and a very important question. So lung is the portal of entry. These chemicals enter through our breathing, go and get deposited in the lung. But the story doesn't end there. These chemicals are transported across the lung membrane into the blood, and through the blood, they go to every organ which gets blood supply. So if you start from the top, our brain, our neck glands, our lungs, liver, kidney, bone, reproductive organs, there is no organ in the body which is unaffected by the perils of air pollution. And the saddest part, which has only been recognized in the last 5 years, and I'm very sorry to share it with you, is that these chemicals in pregnant women pass through the placenta, which is the link between the mother and the baby, and they go to the underdevelopment baby also. So very sadly, the damage by air pollution does not wait for us to come to this world. It starts its damage even when we are inside our mother's womb. And there is enough data now available to say that starting from congenital defects to growth retardation, to early or premature delivery, to death inside the uterus, to death around the delivery time, all these complications are reported to be higher in women who live in polluted cities. So this is the extent of damage. It starts even before we are born. So brain is affected. There is data now to say that the IQ development of these children is not normal. There is hyper irritability, which all of us are reporting from children of major cities. And earlier we used to say, oh, the children these days are very naughty. But actually they are not naughty. They are all suffering from the toxic effects of air pollution. There is data that lung development of children born and brought up in polluted cities is suboptimal. The heart is affected. So there is a 25 times higher chance of a heart attack in people who are born and brought up in cities with pollution. There is higher chance of hypertension. So earlier, hypertension was being attributed to obesity, but recent data, and this is very, very surprising and very alarming data, and this is part of our study also, which we have done, that a lot of obesity that we are seeing in children in metros is actually related to pollution. Diabetes is now being linked to pollution. So starting from hyper irritability, low IQ, various asthmatic disorders, all kinds of lung problems, allergic disorders, to high blood pressure, heart attack, you name an organ and it is affected by the perils of air pollution. So it affects every part of the body. It makes us sick. It leads to millions of premature deaths. And most importantly, which is actually the death is tip of the iceberg, but the real base of the pyramid is the huge economic loss that it causes. Because when someone is sick, he goes to the doctor, he goes to the ER, his family is disturbed, he is absent from his work, his family is absent from his work, his productivity is affected. And if you calculate all that, and the World Bank has done one study in which they have calculated all that, the cost goes into trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, which is a colossal loss to the economy, all because of the avoidable problem of air pollution.
Now, also over a dozen scientific papers have linked COVID-19 with air pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying that it's a serious kind of public health emergency.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Will the vaccine, which is now much in the news also, will eliminate this problem between COVID-19 and air pollution?
So the link between COVID-19 and air pollution actually came first from a paper from China, which came way back in April of this year, April 20. And then there was a seminal paper from Italy, which actually plotted the PM 2.5 levels across Italy in one graph, and the incidence of COVID infection across Italy in another map. And they found that the two maps actually were replica of each other, which means that the areas with higher PM 2.5 were reporting higher incidence of COVID infection per unit population. Similar reports came of other countries in Europe. And then there was a landmark paper from Harvard, which looked at death rate relating to PM 2.5, and they reported that communities which are exposed to higher level 2.5 have higher death rate from COVID, all other factors remaining. So if we add up more than 20 such nicely conducted studies, peer-reviewed, published in peer-reviewed journal, the summary is that areas with higher levels of PM 2.5 report a higher incidence of COVID infection per unit population, and they also have a higher death rate. And we in Delhi saw it very clearly when there was a sudden spike in levels of pollution here. Countrywide, the incidence of COVID infection was going down, but in Delhi, suddenly the numbers started going up, and so was the mortality, which has been correlated to pollution levels. So it's a clearly established fact, and the reasons are not far to seek. When you have high levels of pollution, it causes damage to the linings of the windpipe and the lung. And we know that a lining which is damaged, which is swollen, is prone to any and every infection, including COVID. And that's how the COVID catches these people faster. That's one. Secondly, pollution damages the lungs, and pollution affected communities have higher incidence of heart attack, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, lung involvement, and various other problems, all of which have been correlated with higher death rate in COVID patients. So when you have people already having these problems, it's no wonder that these people have a higher mortality. So higher incidence and higher mortality both is associated and is clearly explainable. Now, our hope definitely is on vaccine. I'm hopeful that very soon, maybe sometimes early next year, we'll have 2 or 3 vaccines being rolled out in our country. However, I take this opportunity to warn our viewers through this interview. Please don't think that vaccine is going to eradicate COVID in a few weeks' time. We are a country with 130 crore population, and unless each and every person has been vaccinated, one, and two, more than vaccinated, he has developed enough antibodies and enough of long-lasting antibodies. This is a very cruel virus. It's not going to go away that easily. So wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing, maintaining hand hygiene, not making large groups, not assembling, not meeting people unless unavoidable. These have been our pillars of prevention. And I wish to convey that at least through 2021, these will need to be continued, vaccine or no vaccine.
Dr. Kumar, so how does one take care of one's lung from air pollution? Like people like us have no choices but to stay in Delhi because of our work, because of our families. And as you have said earlier that without even lighting up a cigarette, we are smoking 30, 40 cigarettes a day. So what's your prescription in, or how does a normal person kind of, should
Yeah,
what kind of do?
that's again a good question, but very difficult to answer for me. You know, it's like saying that you're wearing a white safari, you're going to jump into a pond which is full of fill, and how can you avoid safari becoming dirty? You know, so breathing Delhi's air and still hoping and dreaming of lungs not being affected is something like a similar situation. What I, as a doctor, want to tell all our viewers is that air pollution is a serious public health emergency. Having talked to millions of people across the country on this issue, I'm surprised that despite so much of media attention being given to it, the awareness amongst people about the extent of the problem is still abysmally low. So as a doctor, my biggest challenge today, not just as a doctor, as a crusader for the clean air issue, my biggest challenge is how do I make 130 crore people understand that air pollution is a major public health emergency. It's affecting the present generation. It's going to ruin the future generation unless we do something about it. That's number one. Number two, we have to understand that it's not something which is caused by somebody else. Each one of us contributes to pollution, and therefore the solution also has to come from each one of us. I have given the name My Solution to Pollution. So all of us think that it's government's responsibility. Government has to do something about it. If you check across the globe, no government anywhere in any country has been able to solve this problem without people's involvement. Because government can make rules and can take measures. Government can't go to every house and enforce that. At the end of the day, people have to accept that, yes, it's something which is affecting us and we have to do about it. And I want to use two Hindi words which is dhool, that is dust, and dhua, that is smoke. Now, these two summarize the problem of air pollution. If you look at air pollution, it's all about smoke and about dust. Dust brings particulate matter and smoke brings particulate matter as well as various toxic gases. If we look around our houses and our workplaces, wherever there is dust, dhoo or dhool, and wherever there is smoke, that is dhua or smoke, if we do little bit to reduce the dhoo and dhoo, it will be my solution to pollution. And if 130 crore people become obsessed with doing my solution to pollution, I'm confident that this problem will improve much earlier than we expect.
Dr. Kumar, I just want to extend this questions, just as you said, on dust. So there's a lot of talk on AQI, people see on their phone apps and all, and outdoor air quality. But there is very little talk on the indoor air quality and its effects. So how serious is indoor air quality? And how do you see this playing out?
Before I answer this question, I must congratulate you. You covered the topic so well. This is a very, very important issue which you have raised. We talk about ambient air quality all the time, but this is a city-centric discussion. If we move beyond our cities, it's not so much the ambient air pollution as indoor air pollution, where there will be a big room where chulha is lit for cooking purposes and you use cow dung or wood. Solid fuel is used and the lady of the house is sitting there with children sitting around her. And there are studies which say that the PM 2.5 levels in that smoke is as high as 25 to 30,000 per microgram per meter cube, something which we cannot even ever imagine that it will reach that level in the city. And the lady, the children, they inhale all that air. And that is the cause of COPD and lung cancer that I am seeing in rural women. And there are enough studies which say that this is one of the important causes. And I am very happy again to report that Ujjwala scheme is actually doing wonders. So there are now houses which have shifted to the gas. But I also have learned that there are many houses where the men still insist on chulha being used because they feel that the chapati and dal which is cooked on chulha is tastier than when it is cooked on gas. And we as Doctors for Clean Air, through lots of videos made in different regional languages, are now trying to reach out to this rural population. We recently released a video called Chulha, where we have appealed to these men of the house that, sir, the health of the women and the children of the house is far more important than the so-called better taste of the chapati and dal made on chulha. And again, through your video, I would appeal to various men that we should shift to gas-based chulhas, and this practice of chulha, which uses solid fuel, should be stopped immediately, which will remedy the problem of indoor air pollution in rural areas to quite an extent. Along with that, I also want to mention that we have done some studies about indoor air pollution in metros, in the offices of various multinationals, etc. And we actually have found high levels of pollution in those areas also. So you very rightly said that indoor air pollution, or if I may use the word, air pollution at workplace, is also an issue which needs to be addressed, because that is the place where a typical worker today spends about 8 to 10 hours of his life every day, and the air quality there is also equally important. Very important question.
So also I read somewhere that even in this urban setting, we spend about 90% of our time indoors. So do you think there needs to be an agency to certify, because we are a very price sensitive market in terms of buying household goods, using paint, furniture, carpets. etc., etc. So do you think there needs a kind of a certifying agency for products to kind of cut down on, or so that people have a choice to buy better products?
I agree about, there cannot be any disagreement that there could be an agency, but my experience of agencies and laws and rules and regulations is that they are there in plenty in our country. I think if we were to go by laws and rules and regulations, we are probably the best country in the world. But when it comes to their implementation, we are at the lowest. So I would again go back to reaching out to people, making them aware. See, one of the major problems with air pollution has been that up till now, it had been talked about mainly as a chemical issue. You know, PM 2.5, this chemical, that chemical. The health angle of this issue had not been highlighted enough. You know, if you reach out to a parent and tell him or her that, you know, the water that your child is drinking is poisoned, they would rush and snatch that bottle from his hand and make sure that he or she doesn't drink it. So why are they not responding the same way when we inform them that the air which your, you know, darling son or daughter is breathing has poison? Why are they not responding in a similar way? There is a lack of awareness about the ill effects. And as a doctor, again, I come back to this, that I take it upon myself and my colleagues that the challenge is for us doctors to drill this information in the minds of people in a real sense. You know, the picture is very horrible, but this horrible picture has not been conveyed to people. I call it triple A approach. So when you make people aware, they will be awakened, and when they will be awakened, they would be willing to take actions which will lead towards clean air.
The other thing, Dr. Kumar, is the questions we get from the fitness community, people who are morning walkers, people who go for runs, people who cycle. they they are continuously looking at their AQI and app, but now during the pandemic, there is also very fewer chances to go to a gym. But people who are connected with fitness and are very engrossed in that thing, uh, what advice do you have for them?
So my advice is that if you are a jogger, you probably toned up your lungs for a little higher level of fitness than somebody who doesn't jog. However, in terms of susceptibility, that is an index of your being a human being. If you are a firefighter, you cannot claim that, oh, I'm a firefighter, my skin is immune to fire. You know, I can put my hand in fire and it will not burn. No, it will burn because that's human skin. So same way, even if I'm a jogger, my lungs will get damaged. Of course, if I have trained my lungs to a better capacity, I have more capacity to lose before I become symptomatic. And therefore, my advice to joggers, which I issued even before this half marathon, that no matter how fit you are, by running in an air which has a bad AQI, you are inviting trouble and you are injuring yourself. It's just that God has given you so much of extra capacity that immediately you are not able to feel the effect of it because it's a slow poison. It affects in the long run, but affect it does, and they all feel it at the end of the day. So areas with high AQI, any kind of physical activity should be avoided. And there is a very simple reason. Normally, when we are you are breathing at a rate of 14 to 16 per minute, taking about 300 cc's of air inside in every breath. So that's what is called every minute of air consumption that we. Suppose I start jogging, I will breathe at maybe 35, 40, 45 per minute, again taking 300 cc's. So I'm taking more air per minute into my lungs, which means more toxins are going into my lung, which means more toxins will get deposited into my lung. It's very simple. So if you run or do any physical activity in an air which has high toxins level, you are actually taking more poisons into your body. So that's why when I discharge my operated patients, I do tell them to do exercise, but I tell them not to go outdoors. I tell them to do it indoors. I tell them to put lots of plants, and I tell them to do it after the sun is there. So because by that time the levels, pollution levels are less, so that their exposure is minimized. Of course, ideal would be to avoid exposure by having clean air, but till such time that we achieve that, we have to reduce as much as we can.
So you're saying midday when the sun is up is a better time to kind of exercise?
If you look at pollution levels, early morning hours, they are the highest. And that's the saddest part, because that's the time when our children usually go to schools. And the highest concentrations are at the level which is children's height level. So they inhale and they tend to run. When they go to school, they tend to run. They anyway have a higher breathing rate. So they tend to, per body surface area, they tend to inhale more air than we adults do. And that's one of the reasons why we always give out this advisory to close the schools whenever pollution levels go very high.
Now let's come to your collective Doctors for Clean Air, which completes 2 years,
2 years
this December. Yeah. So tell us this journey and also a bit of the Lung Care Foundation that you had founded.
So Lung Care Foundation basis was what I described right in the beginning. When I shifted from All India Institute to Gangaram Hospital in March of 12. Now, All India Institute caters largely to population from UP, Bihar, rural areas. A lot of those patients are there, where Gangaram Hospital caters mainly to city population, especially the area around it. So there was a difference in the segment that I was operating. And I was astonished when suddenly I started seeing more black spots. And there was a time when I had series of teenagers who had these black spots. And I was really disturbed that this is a very serious damage. And I am privy to this information. What do I do? And I discussed with my friend Rajiv Khurana and two of my colleagues in the department, Dr. Bilal and Abhishek. And one day we all sat down and we said, well, we must share this information with public. So we thought, what do we do? Okay, let's set up an NGO. So since it was about lung, since we were to care, so Care Foundation. So that's how Lung Care Foundation name was taken. And we chose the logo as a pair of lungs with a dole, around it. So we said, happy, healthy lung is our target. And we thought awareness about issues which damage lung health and improving and encouraging practices which lead to better lung health, that will be our motto. So care and cure of 2.6 billion lungs in India. That was the motto with which we started Lung Care Foundation. I have always believed that children are one of the most powerful medium of change. So to begin with, we started going to schools. So we started from municipal corporation schools, and starting from May 2015, in the next 2 years, we addressed more than 20,000 children across all strata of schools in Delhi, from municipal corporation to various private schools. And then we thought we should do some activity which catches, nationwide attention and brings focus to this issue of air pollution, because it wasn't getting the required attention. So one of our founder trust, Abhishek, suggested that let's make a Guinness World Record for largest human image of lung, and let's use children. So since we had connects with schools, we had 5,003 children from 35 schools across Delhi NCR collect in Thyagaraja Stadium on 23rd December 2017 in the presence of Honorable Shri Anil Bajal ji, the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, and the team from Guinness Foundation. And we created a Guinness World Record for the largest human image of lung that day. Now this got massive national and international media attention. And thereafter, we got invitations from WHO, United Nations, etc., for various lectures. And so this was the journey of Lung Care Foundation. And this, of course, is continuing. Now, Doctors for Clean Air birth took place in Geneva, when I was addressing the WHO conference. I was giving a keynote address there. After I finished my lecture where I showed these images of black lung, pink lung, there was a continuous clapping for almost 3 minutes, which had not happened with many other lectures where very hi-fi scientists had spoken. And I just went and spoke to people, why did you get so much affected by my lectures? And they said, you know, a doctor telling us these images, etc., etc., it was very frightening. So there I realized the power of a doctor as a motivator for the cause of clean air. And that was the birth of Doctors for Clean Air. I thought it's the bounden duty of all of us doctors to not let it be a chemical issue, but make it a health issue, reach out to people and tell them the damage. And that's how this journey started.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for your wisdom. This is an absolute pleasure having you on Planet Outlook.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you. Bye.